In a time long before history was written, before pyramids, before fire was mastered in every home, before we even called ourselves human, there lived another kind of people. People who walked the same earth. People who looked into the same stars. People who, for thousands of years, were us. They were Neanderthals. Not monsters. Not brutes. Not failed prototypes of humanity. But survivors, innovators, and yeser brothers. Today, we peel back the layers of time to uncover the truth behind Homo neanderthalensis, the mysterious species that once thrived across Ice Age Europe. And in doing so, we rediscover what it really means to be human. The story of the Neanderthals begins around 400,000 years ago. Born from Homo heidelbergensis, a common ancestor also shared with us Homo sapiens, the Neanderthals, emerged in Europe and parts of Western Asia. While our ancestors were crafting their first tools on African savannas, Neanderthals were already mastering the frozen heartlands of Ice Age Europe. They weren't wanderers. They were survivors, learning to hunt in snowbound forests, to shelter from bitter winds, to endure the long, dark winters that would crush lesser species. They weren't simple. They were resilient. Forged by cold and sharpened by time, they adapted in body, mind, and spirit. They weren't a side story. They were a chapter of humanity written in ice and bone. Imagine a human more muscular than an Olympic athlete, with bones dense as oak and lungs large enough to endure freezing nights and high altitudes. Neanderthals were modest in height by today's standards, averaging around 1m65, but they were robust, strong, and exceptionally resilient. Their frames were compact yet incredibly strong, built for brute strength and stamina. Their skulls were long and low, with prominent brow ridges and wide noses, likely adaptations to breathing cold, dry air. Their rib cages were barrel-shaped, their hands thick and strong, their joints capable of powerful, deliberate movement. But here's the real shocker. Their brains were just as big as or sand in some regions, even larger. This wasn't a species of grunting cavemen. This was a thinking, planning, feeling people built for endurance, but born to adapt. They didn't live alone. Neanderthals traveled in small groups, families, most likely bound by cooperation and care. They hunted together, shared food, and likely raised their young in close-knit communities. We know from skeletons found in Shanidar Cave, Iraq, that Neanderthals cared for the sick and injured. One individual, blind in one eye, with a withered arm and a limp, lived for years, only possible with help, protection, and love. This is not the behavior of mindless beasts. It is compassion. It is community. Some burials even suggest spiritual thought. Flowers, ochre, tools buried with the dead. Were these signs of ritual or simply practical? The line is blurry but undeniably human. They didn't just survive together. They belonged to one another. When we think of technology, we think of iPhones. But 300,000 years ago, a sharpened flake of stone was the height of human innovation. Neanderthals mastered the level-ah technique, a sophisticated method of shaping flint tools by striking prepared cores. This wasn't random bashing, it was planned, methodical, and efficient. It required foresight, geometry, and fine motor control. They created wooden spears, like those found in Schöningen, Germany, perfectly balanced for thrusting, likely used in close-range ambush hunts. Imagine standing in the shadow of a mammoth, trusting your life to a carved stick. That was their reality. They weren't just tool users. They were engineers of survival, craftsmen of the Paleolithic world, mastering design under pressure, forging weapons with purpose and precision. Neanderthals were apex predators. They hunted steppe bison, woolly rhinoceroses, reindeer, and Yes-7 mammoths. They worked together, likely in coordinated group attack strategies that required planning, communication, and courage. ambushes, traps. The kind of tactics you'd expect from seasoned warriors, not primitive brutes. But they weren't just meat eaters. Recent isotope analysis and archaeological findings reveal a more nuanced diet. In some areas, they gathered nuts, berries, mushrooms, and edible plants. In coastal regions, they collected shellfish and even roasted fish over open flame. They knew their environments intimately. They studied the land, read the seasons, tracked migration. They didn't just survive the Ice Age, they adapted to it, thrived in it, and shaped it to fit their needs. Ever try surviving a winter without a jacket? Neanderthals did the Ice Age version. There's compelling evidence they used hides to make fitted clothing. Tanning techniques, possibly involving tree bark rich in tannins, helped preserve the leather. Bone awls and scrapers suggest stitching, and shaping this wasn't just draped fur, but tailored insulation designed for movement, protection, and warmth. Their shelters ranged from cave dwellings to freestanding huts made of mammoth bones, wooden frames, and hide coverings. They engineered living spaces to block wind, hold heat, and house families. This was not primitive living. It was calculated, deliberate, intelligent adaptation and architecture of survival, crafted by people who understood the cold and refused to be conquered by it. Here's where the story gets poetic. In caves across Europe, we find traces of red ochre, shell jewelry, and even hand stencils, many dated to Neanderthal timelines. In La Pasiega, Spain, cave markings made at least 64,000 years ago are now believed to be the oldest known art in the world, and they weren't made by Homo sapiens. Was it art? Was it ritual? Was it communication? Whatever the intent, one truth stands out. Neanderthals had symbolic thought. They expressed. They imagined. Some researchers even argue they had spoken language and not just gestures or grunts. The FOXP2 gene, critical for speech in humans, was present in Neanderthals too. Were their voices deep? Did they sing to children at night? We'll never know, but we know they spoke. Somehow. Around 40,000 years ago, Neanderthals vanished. The causes remain debated, but most agree it wasn't a single event. Climate change struck hard. Glaciers advanced and retreated. Ecosystems collapsed. Food sources dwindled. Competition with Homo sapiensu migrated into Europe intensified. They fought for land, prey, and survival. But here's the twist. They didn't all die. They merged with us. Interbreeding occurred, and their legacy was passed down. Today, every person of non-African descent carries between 1–2% Neanderthal DNA. Skin tone, immune responses, even tendencies in sleep and behavior, traces of them live on in us. They didn't vanish. They became part of the human story, a hidden chapter written in our very blood. To study Neanderthals is not to look at strangers. It is to look in a mirror, dimly. They were dreamers, fighters, artists, parents, hunters, builders. They crafted tools with care. They mourned their dead. They painted on stone, carved ornaments, and whispered stories we'll never hear. They were human in every way that matters. And when you stare into the fire at night, when you feel the pull of ancient forests or catch a chill that feels older than time, when your instincts speak louder than logic, or your soul stirs at the sight of stars, maybe it's not just you. Maybe it's them, their memory, their code, still alive, whispering through the DNA in your blood. At Prehistoric Shadows, we believe history isn't just a story of kings and empires. It's the story of the forgotten, the misunderstood, the ancestors who shaped us. If this journey through Neanderthal life awakened something in you, curiosity, awe, maybe even kinship, then hit that subscribe button. Turn on notifications, because we're just getting started. Next, we'll explore the Denisovans, another mysterious branch of our family tree with secrets still buried in Siberian caves. Until then, remember, they were not just them, They were us.